will of Maxwell Roth. He sought the footlights like a moth, his sense of timing never off until he opted to collaborate with a hooded reprobate. The blighter and assassin made a deadly double bill. Jokes, 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 make 'em laugh until they choke, fairly slay 'em in the aisles, maidens fair and princes charming. Thrills, 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 dashing feats and bloody spills, and I guarantee you'll never see the ending coming. The curtain rose, the scene was set, they danced a murderous duet, and much deserving blood was let up to the scene wherein they disagreed on who should live and who should bleed, and Maxwell Rothy then received a very bad review. Jokes, 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 and there's daggers and there's cloaks, but behind the scenes the leading players differ on the plot. Laugh, laugh, laugh at the dandy's new red scarf. Now 8 shows a week to Beelzebub is his eternal lot. Jokes, 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 make 'em laugh until they choke, fairly slay 'em in the aisles, maidens fair and princes charming. Thrills, 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 dashing feats and bloody spills, and I guarantee you'll never see the ending coming.
So that's what we got. I like that song. I don't know about you guys, but I personally enjoy that song. We have a broken YouTube chat monitor. Maybe it will work now. There we go. There we go. So yeah, now if you're watching this stream later, you can actually see what people are saying after they've said it, which is kind of nice and relatively useful because it just makes it so. I always get annoyed when I watch like a Twitch stream recap reel or something like that, and then I see them referencing stuff in the chat or something like that, but I don't actually get to see what it is. That always drives me crazy, but I think it can be overdone to the point where half the screen is the chat and then half of it's the gameplay. So I don't know. This, I feel, is a good balance. We're doing a podcast, so I figure it's just a good balance. People are asking, Vincent is asking what song that is. That's from the original soundtrack of Assassin's Creed Syndicate. It's a song called Jokes, Jokes, Jokes. And hopefully we don't get a copyright strike because of it. Usually video game soundtracks are all good and clear because they realize if they start striking stuff based on the soundtrack, it gets real messy real fast. So that's what we're dealing with right now. I had to quickly take a shower also before this stream because at work we put down a bunch of chemicals onto the lawn and I smelled like pure sulfur. I'm sure I shortened my life by a little while. For those of you, I also see AI3GT saying audio and video is slightly off. I have seen that. That's been the last few videos. I don't know what the dealio is. It's like a webcam issue or it's a streaming software issue. Something is up and it's off ever so slightly. I don't know what its dealio is, but I have been experimenting trying to fix it. I sent back the previous webcam. This guy on the side doesn't seem to be as bad, but he's still there. And so I just need to experiment. Maybe it's just a matter of throughput. Maybe this is just what you get with this type of webcam. And it's always going to be a little limited. So that's just part of what we're dealing with. But we have some interesting topics to discuss. I do want to say I didn't post a critique this past week, and that's because I'm working on a few right now. I mainly just don't want to rush them. I rushed a couple. They weren't received super well. People didn't really connect with the format of The Last of Us critique, even though it was a ton of work, weeks in the making, and I spent countless hours working on it. It just didn't connect with people. It was more of a commentary. I figured it's a narrative game, so if we went through it from start to finish, talking as we went, maybe people would be able to get more from it. But people instead, I think, were expecting 2 hours of just explaining gameplay concepts and characters and everything. So I misjudged and misread what the audience was looking for. So that was a little disappointing and frustrating. And of course, the Blood and Wine critique, I just flat out rushed. So I didn't get to do the normal detail work that I would do. But as of right now, I'm working on a few. I'm going to be careful as to what I'm actually going to be doing and covering next, because I have a few things lined up, and it's just a matter of what I think will fit right and what I can make into an interesting critique. I was going to do a big one on Hollow Knight. The problem is I don't know, like, there's not a ton to say about Hollow Knight. It's just a good game. I guess I could talk about the lore a little bit and some of the gameplay mechanics, but in general, it's a very simple game that sets out to do something, and it does it. And so to do a half-hour video would be a stretch. I think that critique would probably only be 10 minutes long, and I'd feel comfortable with the amount of stuff I said. But we're going to work on it, and we're going to keep working through Maur. I feel so bad. I can never correctly pronounce your name, man. I'm sorry. M-A-O-R. I'm just bad at this. It says, are you going to play Uncharted The Lost Legacy, and what do you think about the fact we're going to play as Chloe alongside Nadine? I'll probably play it because I, after all, gave Uncharted 4 my game of the year last year. But I've said it since the first time I played Uncharted 4. Lots of people disagree with me. That's fine. I do not like Nadine as a character, and I think Chloe should have been killed off as a character, and I think they were setting it up to be killed. Like, it just, I don't like either of the characters, basically. So if they can win me over, great. I'm just worried that it's going to turn into a typical Naughty Dog feminism, you're a bad person if you don't agree with this, oh, you're upset Nathan Drake isn't in an Uncharted basically game is the size it is. It's basically a game by itself. Too bad you're sexist if you don't like it because it's women and you know, you shouldn't miss Nathan Drake. So I like Nathan Drake. I'm gonna miss him. Maybe he'll make a cameo appearance, but in general, I'm not super thrilled about it. Maur, but let's, yeah. AI3GT, let's get into that Destiny 2 flop talk. That's just a funny thing to say. Flop talk, I like it. Okay, so let me get this up. So, as I said, we have a few things that we're going to discuss and figure out. I believe this is the right button. Yes, it is. This is like, never go to Polygon. Just never do it. I happen to like the pictures they pulled, but never go to Polygon. Do as I say, not as I do. Polygon is terrible. But essentially what happened, wow, that text is huge, but I guess it kind of works because you guys can read it. Anyway, I feel like I'm 83 and I can't read. So the game is going to launch on September 6th, and people are getting excited for it. Now, the original game was pretty decently received. Destiny was pretty decently received. The big thing was that people expected it to, in many ways, redefine the entirety of the multiplayer online shooter genre, essentially. What Halo had initially started, where you're playing with friends and all that, and then Call of Duty took the mantle, then Battlefield, and then they were like, Destiny's going to take it. And in some ways it did, and some people really connected with it. I have a friend, now I know somebody rather, who has put in, I think he said like 5,000 hours into Destiny, which is so foreign to me because it seems very repetitive and boring to me. I don't get it. But some people have completely committed to it and are absolutely in love with the original Destiny. So when the Destiny 2 beta launched for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, it was basically for 2 full days, and people had the opportunity to try it out. Now, I believe that a PC one is coming a little later, PC beta that is, and people will be able to try it then. But yeah, so essentially it runs well. In terms of graphics, I thought it looked, again, I did not personally play it. I basically watched a close friend of mine play it, and then I moved around on the controller. But I didn't sit down and play it for an extended period of time, mainly because I just don't have time to do it, and I don't have much of an interest in it to begin with. And so they basically went through, and as far as I can tell, they took the original and tried to turn the dials all up, all of them. So instead of focusing on one thing like the graphics and making that just mind-blowingly better or something, even though it's not a bad-looking game, like this game looks very, very good, as you can tell. But instead of focusing on one thing and then just turning the knob up 5 notches, they turned everything half a turn or a turn, just 1 notch. And so everything is technically improved, but it's very, very similar to the original. So don't expect this game to pull you in if you weren't already interested in the original Destiny. Now, the reason I said that it was basically a flop in many ways was because lots of people were expecting this to be essentially a large invitation to everybody who had initially thought they were going to be into Destiny and then were wildly disappointed by what they got, which was a pretty typical sci-fi shooter, MMO type game. So a lot of people thought that this was going to be the game that really did what the original Destiny was saying it was going to do, which was redefine the genre, which was blow everyone away. It was going to just really impress everybody. And there was going to be no debate. Destiny is the king of multiplayer shooters. But people played it and found that it was incredibly, as many people have said, samey, if that's a word that you like. And I from what I saw, it was basically that's about right. So there's all sorts of complaints that people really familiar with the game have had, things saying, you know, power armor, they've changed drop rates, but basically this is all gameplay related. I'm sure there'll be an interesting narrative to follow through, but yeah, so this quote from Ashley, apparently a writer they have, said, when I booted up the beta, I wasn't expecting anything too different from the first one, but those visuals always surprised me. Both the cutscenes and the maps were absolutely gorgeous, so rich in color. I am a big sucker for shading, and they felt way more polished. And I would agree that most things look polished, but in terms of graphics, it's, unless you played a lot of the first one, it's a little tough to distinguish between the two games. That might be completely ridiculous if you're familiar with the two games, but for me, I had to look a little closelier. And sometimes you need to do that. Sometimes you need to look even more closely. So they go on to say, I'm really excited for the narrative aspect of this game, especially since we all know the first one isn't exactly known for that. The homecoming mission did a great job teasing that out. Finally seeing, I'm not gonna even try. Ikora Zavala in action was really cool. I definitely want to see more of that throughout the rest of the campaign, which I think is their opportunity to pull people in who weren't already connected. But that's the big thing, is Destiny 2, what's it trying to do? That's what you got to ask. That kind of rhymes, so I guess it's a fair question. If it didn't rhyme, it wouldn't be. The big thing is, what is Destiny 2 attempting to pull off with this release? Are they trying to pull over their same audience from before, or are they trying to welcome in an entirely new audience? What's their goal here? And typically most sequels, their goal is to maintain their previous audience, the audience that loved the original, and then welcome in a whole new crowd that were alienated or didn't like the first one, whatever it was. They're trying to welcome in just more people in general. It makes sense in terms of business. It makes sense artistically. That's just what it is. Unfortunately, though, Bungie's, it appears they haven't done much of anything differently from the original Destiny, other than turning those knobs up a little, polishing it up to the point where Destiny 2 is looking like the game people expected back when the original Destiny launched, and it's not going to do anything to pull in new people. So I'm open to it, and I'm certainly going to keep an eye on the game if it really comes out with some narrative element, with something that's new or different. But the flop is simply that they didn't do what they needed to do in order to pull people in that weren't already interested in the game. All they did was polish up basically the original game, it's like a massive expansion, which might be their essential goal, is to just maintain the player base and welcome in some other people that were expecting something more polished. Destiny, the original game, sold a lot of copies. Difference was most people left the game pretty quickly because they just didn't get hooked. Perhaps their goal here is to pull those people back in. I don't know. That's my personal guess, because if they were trying to, their whole focus, if it was to pull people like me, pull people that are typically on my channel that are more focused on or just weren't bought in to the original game, I just don't see much of this. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. What I am really interested in, what I've seen some people talk about in the chat, is the comparison to Anthem with Destiny 2. Anthem is definitely, it appears to be trying to take on the same market as Destiny 2, which is why I think they're going to be happy to release way before Anthem. Anthem has a lot to live up to, especially after showing off that initial gameplay trailer. Game looks incredible, but Lord knows BioWare has a lot to make up for, and I'm not gonna go buy in a game of theirs willy-nilly without seeing reviews, without seeing really rigorous testing first. That's just what they've brought on themselves after Andromeda, for instance. So yeah. Bianca Stein says you only needed 5 hours to realize Destiny was a letdown. Yeah, well, that's the unfortunate thing, is I think a lot of people expected a lot and didn't get much. Wizard Jim says, I had Destiny 2 beta access and completely forgot about it because I was busy playing Warframe. Well, you know, that's the excitement level for Destiny 2. Clearly, they're getting people pumped. Alexander Wayne says, unless they drastically changed the way they handled DLCs and added more, a more expanded story, they're going to pull... they weren't going to pull new people in. Even the DLC is a difficult thing to pull off, just because if you change your DLC policy, it doesn't really matter if people aren't interested in the core game to begin with, because DLC is just more of whatever game you're talking about. I think most people left the game, as Bianca said, after 5 hours, because they just realized it was going to be the same monotonous activities over and over and over again. So DLC that keeps doing that, why would they want any of that? So they just got off and went and played something else. Let's see. Sean Reynolds says, oh, good point. How many hours is fair for an MMORPG to be reviewed? Well, that's why you got to go with YouTubers that you like, YouTubers that you're aware of, reviewers that you're aware of that have similar tastes as you do. Because really, when it comes down to it, some people will say, like, you can't rate or review or talk about anything unless you go and like play the entire game start to finish twice or 3 times. Or if you're talking about an MMORPG specifically, you know, you can't talk about the game until you've put in 300 hours. And that, I understand what people are saying. I can kind of get the philosophy behind that, because you're not talking about a game that's a 10-hour experience. You're talking about a game that's built for a hugely long form playthrough. You're not talking about a game that's meant to be played short term. And so to review it in a short term way is probably flawed. Probably. But I mean, if you're talking about to somebody who's played the game for 1,000 hours, chances are they liked it. And so if they recommend it to you, then that's what it is. So when it comes down to it, if somebody's put 1,000 hours into a game, they're probably not going to be perfectly unbiased towards it, which is why it's better just to find somebody that you have similar tastes to, whether it's a YouTuber, whether it's a reviewer, whether it's your friend, whether it's a streamer, whatever. And if they liked it, they played it for any amount of time, then you can go and try it out, and that's going to offer you the best chances. But I've seen that a lot, where people are like, no, you can't like talk about this game because you didn't play it for 30 hours or for 300 hours. It's just a little ridiculous. But I understand the philosophy of that claim. But anyway, let's see. I had another note. Let me find where it went. Nope, wrong button. Wrong button. I'm very good at buttons. Nope. Come here. There we go. So the other, another big thing that happened this week was that Splatoon 2, for instance, launched. I tweeted out that I felt bad that I was not that interested in Splatoon 2, but, you know, Nintendo is pushing it like it's the second coming, and it's just a little bizarre that they aren't directly, I don't know, they're acting like it's the second coming. It's just another Splatoon. Some people love it. I guess it looks okay, but I'm not going to go and spend $60 on it. I'm going to save my money for something a little later on this year. If I were that desperate to play something like that on the go, I'd get it. But it's very similar to ARMS in that it's, I think they have 8 basic modes or maps rather, to play through in the multiplayer Nintendo, whatever, switch to switch thing. And so I guess if I really needed the game to play, if I were traveling a lot and I needed to find something to put on my Switch, I would get it. But currently I'm not going anywhere. I'm not sitting out doing nothing. I can do that. So I'm just not that into Splatoon 2, but it's got an 84 on Metacritic. It seems to be doing well. It's a few points, I think, higher than the original Splatoon. So people enjoy it. If they're enjoying it, they're playing it, have a good time. I don't really, you know, care. Just go about, do your thing. But just something to be aware of. Now, another thing that was very interesting, I want to see how many of you guys heard about this and your thoughts on it. Dr. Disrespect and PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds. This was actually a pretty big deal, strangely enough. I'm not really sure why, but apparently a lot of people got very, very triggered by this whole debacle that came about. This is ironic and hilarious because this is coming off of CNBC, but we'll look at it anyways. This right here. Okay. Online fight between Dr. Disrespect and creator of $100 million title captivates the gaming world. So essentially this guy, if you're not familiar, I want to hear if you heard about this and if you've been following it, but we'll cover it because it's such a weird scandal, if you can even call it that. But I think it's important to at least address it because it happened this week and we talk about gaming and that's just what we do. So this guy, Dr. Disrespect, very nice outfit. He's playing a character, if that's not evidently or extremely clear already. Basically his gimmick is that he puts on like this hair, has the mustache, the sunglasses, and essentially he's Dr. Disrespect. He acts kind of like a punk, and it's funny, it's hilarious, and he just goes around playing games, acting like a butthole. And he probably has massive amounts of coffee as well. Oh, very good. Throughout the week, I get coffee, and on your 11th stamp, you get a free drink. So throughout the week or every other week, I'll just buy coffees so that on Friday before Talk Gaming, I can get a free one, any size, and I can get that. So I can fuel myself as we go. But anyway, Dr. Disrespect. He was playing PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. And a little context, Dr. Disrespect, he is a Twitch streamer exclusively. He's got 658,000 typo. That's great. Look at that. That's awesome. They forgot a zero. He has 658,000 followers, and he gets around 20,000 viewers per video or per stream that he does. So he's pretty popular on Twitch. That's very, very good for just a typical everyday Twitch stream. Now, essentially what happened is that PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, they set this policy saying that you couldn't team kill. So if you had a team member, you can't just go and kill them for comedic effect or goofing off or whatever. It's a slimy thing to do, and they'll ban you if you do it. Now, Dr. Disrespect, in character, of course, went and killed on stream one of his friends in the game, team killing him. So the problem is when you're doing that in front of 20,000 people, chances are that somebody on Twitch's staff or a player Unknown staff is going to see it or at least hear about it. And sure enough, the creator of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds found out about this and decided to ban him. And essentially, so it all started when the streamer got temporarily banned by Brendan Green, the creator of PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, for killing his online teammate during a game, which is against the game's rules. The two playfully bantered on Twitter over the incident. Now, this guy, the creator, said, whoops, well, there you go. This is a reference to South Park, actually. If you break the rules in PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, no matter who you are, you're going to have a bad time. A South Park reference, which I can respect. And he goes on, Dr. Disrespect says, if I can zoom in so you can read it. There you go. I'll break the rules anytime, anywhere I go, and look good doing it. Again, he's in character. This is what he does. It's funny. It's funny. In my house, you follow the rules, or you GTFO heart. And then they go on, if I could do the splits, I'd roundhouse kick you in the neck. But since I can't, I'll just front kick you in the chest instead. Lightning. And then PewDiePie gets in on it. Shocked and appalled that Dr. Disrespect decided to use violence as a threat. He must have played one too many of those violent video games. And so basically everybody just gets in on it and is talking about the absurdity of this entire exchange and discussion. So it followed up with PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds account basically going on and saying, hey man, you shouldn't use violence as a threat. That's appalling. It's disgusting. How could you? That's totally not cool. You can't do that. You threatened to kick me in the chest. That's over the line. And it was like very triggering for that guy. And everyone was like, dude, he just said that he was going to roundhouse kick you in the chest. Like, it's not or front kick you in the chest. Not a big deal. He's joking. He's playing a character. Don't get your panties in a ruffle. But no, they banned him and stood by it. And apparently the creator of PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, his reason for being so hurt by it was because in college he was kicked in the chest during like a scuffle with a roommate. And as a result, he knows what it's like to be kicked in the chest. And so it was a little more real for him. And so the idea of using that specifically as a violent threat was a little too much for him to handle. Okay. I understand that. The difference is, like, I haven't kicked in the chest. When I was training one day in one of our martial or mixed martial arts classes, I had a partner, a friend of mine, and we were training knee kicks, or knee kicks, that's not a thing, knees to the body. And so essentially you were supposed to grab your training partner, the one partner was holding the pad on your chest, and then the other person would send a knee into the body, and you would just train throwing those knees like that. And we trained this for a little while, and then right as one of our instructors calls time to break, I'm like, okay, time, and I start to lower the pad. He goes up for a flying knee, it skips off the pad and hits my jaw right there, and all my teeth like were about to fall out. Normally your teeth are in the socket like this, like fully sunk there. My teeth, after taking that knee to the jaw, we didn't have mouthpieces or anything because we were training knee kicks to the body, so why would we need mouthpieces? But it slipped, hit my jaw, and by that point, the teeth had popped out to like that point. Had to rush over to the dentist. He like basically put cement all around my teeth to keep them from falling out. As I went to the orthodontist got there and then put like braces. I had braces for like 5-6 months on the bottom row of teeth while they set back in, and now I have a permanent retainer on the bottom as a result of that. So I know what it's like to be kneed, to be kicked, to be like or like that. We've all been in fights, but that doesn't mean that you can't joke about it. Like it's just funny when you say like, I'm gonna roundhouse kick you in the jaw if you mess with me, ha ha ha. Like, it's funny, it's jokey, it's especially because he's in character. Even if he wasn't in character, it would still be funny. But the fact that he's like, oh, well, I just, it's very real for me. I was kicked in the chest in high school or college. Oh, okay. Like, okay. I did not think this was going to make you that upset, but it did. And it's just another example of when people kind of go above and beyond. I think you have to be careful. Like in general, when you try, or when something like this gets in, you roll with the punches, you roll with the jokes, you spin them back. That's why it was funny when the PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds guy said, you know, well, you come in my house, if you mess around, then you need a GTFO heart, and then all of that. And it was like playful, it was funny. He was playing into the character's hands, and the character was playing into his hands, and it was just funny. It was entertaining. But then it just got like so real all of a sudden. It was just weird. It was a weird event. It's so much so that people outside of the gaming industry were noticing it and commenting on it. And so it's just a little bizarre. It's just a little bizarre. But with that, let me see what we got elsewise right here. So Destiny 2, Dr. Disrespect. Apparently also I think he's still banned. He moved on to another game. Even if he wasn't and he was unbanned, still, it would just be like, okay, I'll just play something else. Does my audience really want to see it? I don't, maybe that's his dedicated audience and that's what they need. But either way, yeah, Max, it's every day, bro. What about that? Okay. Jake Paul and whatever his brother's name is, Jake Paul and Paul, Poop Paul, Aaron Paul, no, whatever the other dude's name is, Jake Paul, that's gonna bug me, I can't think of it, I don't know. Anyway, the Paul brothers, they went and they're doing all this. They're like exploding on YouTube right now. They are at like each 8 million subs or something. And they're former Disney stars, at least one of them is, and it's just so bizarre that they're exploding, because every summer usually there's one YouTuber, two YouTubers, at least a handful, that really explode and are like the YouTubers of the year, essentially. Last year it would probably be Casey Neistat. He exploded. He was everywhere doing everything. He was the really popular guy because he basically reinvented vlogging. This year, unfortunately, and last year was also like Leafy. He was big, and Drama Alert. This year, it's probably those guys. And it's a little frustrating. Logan Paul. It's a little frustrating that that's the new standard, or the new, like, visionaries on the platform. And maybe it's not. What's striking to me is that they have a really healthy like to dislike ratio. And I asked my little sisters, I said, have you guys heard of these guys? And they said, yes, they're so funny. They're so savage. And I was, what? Like, what? And that really, I think that's what it is. You're talking about Disney stars who in some ways have I wouldn't say necessarily an unfair advantage, but compared to your average vlogger or YouTuber, it is basically an unfair advantage. You're talking about somebody who's starting out with a lot of money, who's starting out with a lot of fans, having started on the Disney Channel. They come onto YouTube after doing Vine for a while, building up another low attention span audience there. They come over to YouTube and then they just flood it with content. And they're willing to do basically anything to get views, and every year there's a new one of them, but they just they come and they go, they come and they pass. I don't think Logan and Jake Paul are going to be around for ages. I refuse to believe that. Leafy disappeared. I watched a few of Leafy's videos way back in the day, and by way back I mean a year ago, and that was a weird trend, I'm telling you, because I go back and I watch them and I remember kind of laughing or chuckling at them. I go back and watch Leafy's videos and I actually am a little baffled that I was watching those and having like fun doing it. I watch them now and I think, I want to punch this kid. Like, this kid is, I want to kick him in the chest. I just don't get it. I think maybe we've all grown up. Maybe it was just a trend and everyone was getting in on it. But whatever it was, it just, I don't know. It's just a weird trend. But Leafy, he's kind of crashed recently. His videos are not doing anywhere near as well as they had been. I just think it's not good to make content that's built around targeting other people. I just don't like that type of content. I think that it's lazy. But not even with that specifically. It's why I hate the drama channels. It's why I don't like Leafy. It's why it's just not for me. It's for a different audience, and that audience seems to enjoy it. But what a weird trend. Jake Paul, Logan Paul, I'm sure they're going to disappear in a year from now. It'll be like, oh yeah, that was a thing. And they'll just kind of fade away into the ether, slowly losing views as their audience grows up and moves on to other creators and content. It's going to happen, but it's a little bizarre. It's a little bizarre. At least we can laugh at it. Leafy, you know, if you called him out for whatever he was doing, unless you were PewDiePie and had a huge enough audience that you could fight him with your audience, basically. If you called him out and said, Leafy's blah, 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 he would make a video on you. And no matter who you were, I don't care what you say, 50,000 people, which is a small number of his crowd, 50,000 people coming at you, sending you hate mail, sending you death threats, sending you whatever. I get it's trolling. I get it's goofy. I get it's on the internet. It's not real. But it still is intense, and it's something that nobody wants to deal with, so they simply don't call it out until somebody else on a big stage can. And that's what people like H3H3 tend to do. They call out those channels. They have some really funny videos on Jake Paul and Logan Paul. But damn, what a weird thing. What a weird thing that's a trend. I don't know. It makes me feel old, and I'm not old, but yeah. Whatever happened to grade A under A? That's a good question. I don't know. I didn't watch him, but num 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 num. Yummy. So, anyway, other things going on. I got some references. This is a little hint as to one of the things I've been doing. I went back and I've been playing through LA Noire, and LA Noire is an interesting, I guess, case study. That's the word. Specifically because this game is from 2011. You're talking about a game that was revolutionary in its day for the facial animation technology that they were implementing. Typically, when you have facial animation in a game, the idea is that you have a physical model that's being moved, the mouth is moving and opening, the eyes are actually blinking, and that's what you're doing to evoke emotions and express emotions, and then you sync it up in post and with all that. But what this game did instead was they actually basically filmed a 360 shot of the actor's head while they were delivering lines, and decided to map it onto a basic mesh, so that instead of actually like having a physical mouth moving, you were seeing an actual basically video. They call it sticky mapping, sticky mapped onto the model's face. And it actually made it look very, very believable, because you were basically watching a video of an actor, not a poorly ported over animation. Now, we're at the point now, if you look at like Uncharted, for instance, we're at a point, or The Witcher 3 or whatever you're talking about, we're at a point where you can basically do enough in terms of animation that you don't need to do that. But at this point in time, this was a revolutionary idea, very, very expensive, inevitably one of the reasons why the studio that made LA Noire had to shut down, because they spent so much money on this new tech. But at the time, I remember hearing all about it. It was a big, big deal. It was really, really cool. My older brother was crazy into it. The idea that like they're actually capturing it. It's a detective game, so you actually are watching their faces. In 2011, the idea that you could have a detective game where you're carefully watching like the eye movements of a character and the perspiration and the way they're breathing and exhaling in order to conclude as to whether or not they're lying or telling the truth. that was such a cool idea. Like, nobody had ever done that, or at least done it well enough to the point where it was believable or reasonable. The game, however, does fail in some other regards, specifically gameplay. It's pretty dry, but if you're interested in the detective elements of the game, it's going to be fun. It's going to be engaging. If you can submit yourself to the mystery that they're giving you, you can have a really good time. It's a really big game. It's really fun. I recommend it. I'm going to be doing a critique on it, and it's going to be a blast. I cannot wait to get around to doing that. I got to figure out how I'm going to tackle it, because you're talking about a game that is massive. It's not an easy thing to just do a critique on. But let's see. Boo. Deathstroke says LA Noire's motion capture still amazes me to this day. I mean, it's parts of the game have really aged poorly. Obviously, you can see in this shot, it's got some issues. You're talking about like a 360 generation game that was very, very ambitious at the time, certainly. And I remember it looked very, very good at the time. But people have asked for a remaster. But I've realized I don't think there is a way to remaster LA Noire. Because, first of all of the facial capture stuff, as far as I can tell, was captured at 30 frames per second. So you're not getting above 30 FPS. You just can't, because the footage for the facial stuff was not captured at a higher frame rate. So that's one issue. Secondly, they already captured the facial stuff. It's not like updating textures will just make it better. No, the textures are videos that were shot. You'd have to refilm all of those sessions where they're actually doing the facial animation and delivering the lines in order to actually do this. So it's just a tough thing to do, which is why I think it would be better served to just get a sequel. The problem is that it's a sequel to a game that was developed by a studio that inevitably went under, and so it's just tough. I don't know how they would manage to do a remaster. Maybe, perhaps they captured all of that facial stuff with crazy, crazy high quality, knowing that one day they might do a remaster. I don't know if that's true. They might have. I kind of hope they have, because this game really deserves a remaster. It's that good. But I'm sure it's just massively expensive to do so. And I would prefer probably a sequel above and beyond anything else. But that'll be interesting also to see if they do use the same facial capture technology that they used in this game, because this was revolutionary at the time, but it's because they needed something like this in order to pull it off. Now you can pull this basically same effect off with just using basically motion capture. You have a camera coming around to the front and the dots pointed at the face. Like if I pull up, let me see if I can find this shot. I'm not gonna, here it is. Here it is. This is it. This is what was needed or was intended from that technology in The Last of Us, or in LA Noire rather. They wanted to be able to pull off facial animations so good that you could basically tell an emotion based purely off of that facial animation. Now you can do it with this type of tech. You don't need to film their face. Now this is so good. Everything that Ashley Johnson is doing on the left, the model of Ellie is doing on the right, to the point that's so accurate that that was a weird transition. That it's all believable. It's all really, really impressive. And so with this type of tech existing, I think that's what they would much rather implement and do. And I think if they could do this, it would be very, very, very good. The one thing though is whether or not LA Noire 2 would deserve or need an open world, because open worlds are something that seem to be overdone way too much nowadays. I'm not sure, but I think L.A. Noire, the original, was probably hurt by the fact it had an open world. I mean, maybe that's not true. Maybe I would have greatly regretted not having an open world, but it just felt very empty and dead. There wasn't anything to do other than just those missions. Yeah, this footage out of context would be very, very weird to have your parents walk in on, wouldn't it? You're just like, oh, hi, Mom. I'm not doing anything. I swear. I'm not watching this weird new type of adult entertainment. But this is frankly amazing. Like this technology blows me away. And I'm saying that having spent a lot of time working on animation stuff, nothing this high quality, obviously, but this is just mind-blowingly impressive. I'm not sure if this is rendered into a, like, basically a post render, so they have to specially key them, or if this is what it will look like not in a cutscene, outside of a cutscene. If this facial animation tech is usable outside of cutscenes in regular gameplay, I mean, that would basically reinvent the term cutscene. Like, you wouldn't need cutscenes really at all in order to communicate much of the same stuff. And that's one of the reasons I'm excited for The Last of Us Part 2. I swear, Naughty Dog always is doing stuff that's so amazing. I have trouble figuring out how it's possible. Like, I really, really do. They do so much where you're just like, this is running off of a PS4 and you can do this. This is mind-blowing. I swear, their engine must just be pure magic. Like, one part highly skilled coders, 2 parts pure magic and unicorn piss. That's what you got. Let's see. Lanky Doza says, I read there's already a remaster in the works. Can you confirm for us real quick? I have not heard that, but let me go to an LA Noire-esque shot while I look it up for you. I mean, I've heard rumors, of course, that there was a remaster in the works, but it was always really, really fugazi. They didn't offer a lot. This one, for instance, right here. This is coming from VG247. Let me pull this up. LA Noire remaster rumored for release on Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. Rumors are afoot that LA Noire is getting remaster and it'll come to the Switch. Okay, so let's see their source. Back in January, Twitter tipster Jan2295 tweeted LA Noire might be getting a remaster that would be making its way to the Switch. Here's his account. According to what I heard, Rockstar might be releasing a remastered version of LA Noire on the Nintendo Switch. He's built up a reputation as a reputable source for leaks when it comes to Rockstar, so even though it sounds completely out of left field, it's not worth dismissing completely. The rumor was backed up by another tipster who said the remaster would also be coming to PS4 and Xbox One late summer. Regarding the LA Noire remaster, the title is sounding like it'll come to Switch, PS4, Xbox One, release slated for late summer. Comicbook.com, they're the ones that initially leaked the Assassin's Creed Origins thing, but had a lot of other faulty stuff. They said it was going to be a dual protagonist game, and it was going to... They said a lot of stuff that ended up being false, but they got the name right, so I don't know what to make of that. But comicbook.com has reported that 3 separate sources related to Rockstar have also confirmed that a remaster is in the works, and that a PS4 release might accommodate VR, as VR features have been prototyped for the console. Not only that, but a first-person mode will be added across all platforms. We'll have to wait for official word from Rockstar on the subject, but what are your thoughts? Blah, blah, blah. Any comments that are interesting? Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting idea. I mean, I would be open to it. This is the type of thing they need to do for the Switch, though. Really, I could care less about a Splatoon 2, but if they could get LA Noire on the Switch, there goes my winter break. Like, I could play it anywhere. Driving up to the mountains. New vlog up, by the way. Really random, but check out my vlogging channel. Link in the description. New vlog is up where we went up into the mountains. But I could care less about a Splatoon 2, but if we get these types of games ported over to the Switch, that's what we need. GTA 5, that originally launched on like the 360 and the PS3. You could, theoretically, in terms of raw power, the Switch should be capable of running that game. If they could do a GTA 5 release on the Switch, that would be successful. If they could, but of course they need to start developing games for the Switch initially, which would be the hope. But if we get these games on the Switch, I'd be more than happy. Now, as for a specific remaster, again, I don't understand how they would be capable of pulling off a remaster other than maybe they have some texture recordings that they've saved all this time and they recorded them in a much higher quality than you can even play on PC in the modern day, and they're able to do that remaster. The idea that it's scheduled for a late summer release, though, that seems a little fugazi to me. The fact we haven't heard anything from it. I mean, who is this? What are we talking? Who are we talking to? 987 followers. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's a super reputable source, but I mean, people want what they want. People believe what they want to believe, and I want to believe that this is happening. They are correct that Jan 2295 is a very believable source in terms of leaks. Like very, very, very believable. He's sent out leaks that were very, very correct and found to be correct much later on. And so much so that even, see this? Rockstar Games and Game Informer follow him because he has such a great track record. So whoever he is, he appears to know what he's talking about. And if he knows that they're, or at least says there appears to be releasing a remastered version, I'll take that because I want it to happen. Who doesn't? I mean, that's just great. Howler's Moon says, instead of an LA Noire remaster, perhaps an LA Noire reboot. That would be interesting. I don't want to spoil anything as to how the game ends. That could be very, very doable. Really the star of LA Noire isn't like a character in the game. It's the city. It's this noir-esque feeling and emotion that the game puts on you, and you start to believe that you're in this late 40s, early 50s America. Everyone's come back from the Great War and are looking for something to justify their life. And it's a really, really interesting concept. And for me, it was very sympathetic, and I lost myself in it, and I absolutely love that game. But I don't know how you would do a sequel. I mean, maybe you do like, but like, how do you do LA Noire 2 that isn't in LA and that isn't noir? Like, you can't. So maybe it's a game that just is not meant to have a sequel. Maybe it's a game that's meant to be rebooted. Maybe it's a game that's meant to have a spin-off where you're talking about like St. Louis boudoir. So I don't friggin' know, but that could be interesting, where you do the same type of stuff but in another setting. Maybe you go to Chicago at the turn of the century. That would be really interesting, and you can solve some of the murders that went on around the World Fair and all that. You could have a really, really cool time of it. You could go back to London. You could do you know, a London setting with this same style of gameplay, but you're hunting down inevitably like Jack the Ripper on a huge scale, but with lots of other smaller cases strewn throughout. I think it could be really, really interesting. It's just a tough thing because LA Noire was built off of the art style. It was built off of the setting. And if you go to another setting, I'm not sure at what point it becomes a totally different game. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure where they're gonna go, but it's an interesting idea nonetheless. I mean, I'm open to this. I would love to see it, but I've heard rumors like this many a time, and I'm not sure if there's much credit for it. I mean, there's a lot of other people, but they're all going to be referencing the same one. The fact that this came out, all of these articles, June 21st, 22nd, June 20th, 21st, 21st, 23rd, 20th, 21st. It's very, very recent. And like, see, this is a report, fresh evidence, might feature. I mean, all of it makes sense. It makes sense that it would do, or that this would happen. But usually, like, no doubt, Rockstar is aware of these leaks. As far as I can tell, they have not smashed them. I mean, it's been a month or so since these leaks went out, and there's no reports on any like denial of this, which if they weren't going to do it, you'd think they would deny it. But the fact they haven't denied it is interesting in and of itself. You know, it's not like saying that, you know, Todd Howard eats the blood of babies every morning on his Frosted Flakes. And it's just like such an outlandish claim that you don't even grant it credence by talking about or acknowledging the claim's existence. No, this is like, it's reasonable, it's believable, and so if it definitely wasn't happening, I think they would have knocked it out a long time ago. Yeah, no, it'd be really interesting to see how they pull it off. One person a long time ago, I remember, was talking about an LA Noire like online, where they like reboot it, but they do it, or they remaster it, but they rebuild the city from the ground up and turn it into like a GTA 5 online, where some people are cops and others are robbers. That could be fun, but I think it could get out of hand really, really quickly. But that could be really, really interesting. Anyway, yeah, if anybody has some last topic things you want to discuss, throw them out at me. I'd love to hear them. While you're doing that, an interesting thing that happened, yeah, send questions in the chat. An interesting thing that happened in the U.S. was that O.J. Simpson was just paroled. O.J. Simpson was just paroled. If you're outside of the U.S. and you're not really familiar with O.J. Simpson or with what happened back in the 90s, or what a parole is, essentially a parole, start there, is just when you've been basically convicted of a crime, you're serving a sentence, but after a certain amount of time you can go before a parole committee and have a hearing to try and say that I've been such a good prisoner, I should be let out of prison early because I'm a good, like, I've changed my life, I'm turning around, whatever it is, so you get off early. And O.J. Simpson specifically was a football player back in like the 80s, and he was a super celebrity. He was super famous. But in 1994, I believe, before I was born, 1994, he was charged with the murder of his ex-wife and a friend of his ex-wives, Nicole Brown Simpson and Don Goldberg, I believe it is. Don Goldberg, is that right? Ron Goldman. Close enough. I got it close. But he was charged with it in a criminal case, and it was like the case of the century all over America. It was this huge deal because it essentially was this big racial debate. People saying that the LAPD, the same PD that, or police department that you're playing as in LA Noire, they were so racially motivated that they planted evidence, they messed with stuff to try and convict OJ of this murder when he didn't do it, blah, blah, blah. In all likelihood, there's actually like a later case, a civil case, found O.J. Simpson guilty or responsible for the deaths of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. There's like no doubt at this point he killed those two people. He slaughtered them, really. If you have a tough stomach, just Google Nicole Brown Simpson murder scene. It's horrible. Like, he butchered those people. And despite all the evidence, he got away with it because the LAPD wanted him to be found guilty so bad that they actually did alter evidence. They took like his socks, dipped them in the blood, and then put him in his bedroom because they needed to pin him down. But when they were found to have altered the evidence, especially the detective that was responsible for it, he was exposed to be this massive racist. He said he had never used the N-word in the last 10 years. And they pull out a tape where he used it like 36 times a few months before. And it wasn't just like N-word that, blah, blah, blah. It was like N-words shouldn't be trusted, blah, blah, blah. They're just like, it was genocidal. It was terrible. And so all of a sudden his testimony was disgraced. Everything he had said was disgraced. And so there was all of a sudden no evidence that could actually be used to justify a guilty verdict against OJ. So he was found not guilty under our justice system, which is what should have happened. As guilty as everybody else could see he was under our justice system, if you alter evidence, that evidence can't be used, because at what point does it stop? If you planted this shoe, how do we know you didn't plant the other shoe, essentially? So he was found not guilty and set free. But in like 2007 or 2008, he was convicted of armed robbery. He broke into a hotel room trying to steal memorabilia of his own from his football days from some other guy that had it, and he was going to sell it for cash because he lost a civil suit where he was going to need to give like $35 million to the families of the people that he had pretty much killed. So he went to jail. He's been in jail for 9 years. He just turned 70 and he just was granted parole. And a lot of people are upset about it. But really, when you're talking about parole, you're talking about being paroled for the crime that you were imprisoned for. He wasn't in prison for a murder. He was in prison for an armed robbery. And since then, he's apparently been like the world's greatest convict. He's just been like a delight, no trouble, nothing at all. And so they paroled him, and it's like this big deal. Everyone's losing their minds, but it's just how you do it. It's just part of the dealio. But yeah, so that's what I got. I just figured I'd talk about it because it's like a big deal in the US for whatever reason. He's a 70-year-old guy, likely slaughtered 2 people. We'll probably never know for absolute certain until he confesses, maybe on his deathbed or something. But now he's free. He's going to go off. But the good thing is basically every penny he earns is going to go to the families of the people that he killed. So, he's not going to go about profiting and making millions of dollars on like a new Kardashian spinoff. He's basically, his life is about finished. He's just not sitting in a cell anymore, but there you go. Let's see. Where... Danny Campbell says, I recommend the TV series The People vs. O.J. Simpson, if anyone doesn't know the story. Yeah, check that one out. I think that's the one with John Travolta playing, I want to say he played Shapiro, his lawyer Shapiro, I think is who he played. It's really, really good. I highly recommend it. Deathstroke, have you heard about the PS5 rumors, and do you think 2019-2020 period is appropriate? I'd probably expect it a little sooner, if anything. I would expect it a little earlier, especially after the Scorpio or the X. Now the X is just, it's such a stupid name. What were they? The Xbox One X. I hate that name. It's so ugly. It doesn't roll off the tongue. Scorpio, just keep it Scorpio. I'm probably going to keep calling it Scorpio because it just is easier to say. Maybe it's because I'm used to it, but I just don't like the name X. I think it's just garbage. Okay, Max, Lukipoo, read this comment by Is Dat Boy. Quote, hey, Lukipoo, out of nowhere, have you thought of doing a Talk Gaming with fans? I think so. We're gonna, I mean, there's certain things you can do with whatever Omegle, I think it is, which can be really fun, where you basically all go on, you say you have similar interests, you put in certain tags, and if you have those tags in common, then you can randomly get paired up with each other and talk. And I thought that that would be really cool. A lot of big YouTubers have done that before. Another thing we could do, Mr. Maddie has done it on his podcast, the Ham Radio broadcast that I was on. He will basically let patrons, people who donate to his Patreon, come on to his show and talk. And sometimes he gets like somebody who knows their stuff, who's brilliant, and it's better than any guest he could have invited on, somebody way smarter, way sharper than me, somebody who, like, just brilliant people. And then other times you end up with people who have terrible lisps and can't maintain eye contact and don't talk at all. And it's just the typical thing when you throw it out there. So maybe that would be an interesting thing to do, is to say that if you donate on Patreon, then you can be on the show. I don't like putting that wall up. I'd like it to just be available to anybody, but then I have to figure out how to do it. I don't know, maybe let my mods on, or maybe watch the Discord. We have a ranking system on Discord, for instance. The more you participate, the more points you earn. So maybe we take like the top 3 earners of the points, the participation points from that week, and invite them on and do something. That could be cool. We'll think about it. But you do have to be careful. Yeah, Deathstroke says Omegle can get real dirty really quickly. Yeah, if you've ever tried it, it's basically 95% genitalia. That's basically all it is at this point. But if you keep the tags, you can sometimes keep it cleaner, which is why live it doesn't work too well, because if you get a surge of trolls coming in, you're just looking at a ton of genitalia, and that's all you're doing. And if you do that as a live stream, you're in trouble. So we'd probably pre-record it, and it wouldn't be a live broadcast, but that could be fun. Let's see, blah, 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 blah. Neat Sarah says, I think that we need a detective game where there is no main story, but your decisions and the things you do will affect the city and people, and you basically will create a story. Kind of like a big dynamic, yeah, kind of like a self-building spider web. That could be cool. That could be cool. I know I've done videos on this in the past talking about the next step for RPGs is not like hardware related. It's nothing like that. It's simply AI. It's the ability to create a world that's breathing, that's living. And if you could do that, it could be interesting. The difference, though, is that a lot of dynamic quests can be done really well, or they can be done really, really, really poorly. I mean, the running joke is, you know, we have a settlement that needs your help. Go and save them. You know, screw your son. Don't actually screw your son, but screw your son. Go save this settlement. That's kind of the running joke of dynamic quests. But if you were able to get it working to the point where you honestly couldn't tell, and that's the way it's worked for some games. I believe Skyrim had a lot of dynamic quests, but people didn't even realize they were dynamic. The Witcher 3 had a lot of dynamic quests, but people didn't realize they were dynamic. And so I think a lot of it is just a matter of putting it in yourself and working on it yourself. I don't know. We'll just have to see. But I think that certainly is the next step for that type of game. We'll just have to see where they go with it. But yes. Tanner Hostrander says, what game are you playing if you haven't been asked that a million times already? The description says it's Destiny 2, but the gameplay doesn't look similar. Doesn't look all that similar to Destiny. Oh, yeah. I spewed coffee. Did you see that? Was that a live take? I have a drinking problem. I'm terribly sorry. So, I mean, right now I'm playing LA Noire because I want to eventually do a critique. That's a big thing is I want to do all these critiques. There's not a lot of new games out right now. In the fall, there will be a ton to play. But there's not all that many games out right now, so I'm playing older ones. And the key thing is I want to make sure I don't get burnt out. I want to make sure I'm still having fun while doing it. And the day I don't have fun, you can see, or the day I don't enjoy what I'm making is the day that you start to realize I'm not enjoying it. And that puts a taint on the content. It makes you not like it. It disconnects the viewer from it. It puts a bad taste in your mouth because you can spot it. You can always spot somebody who's doing their work as a chore. You know, you go into the KFC and you see the person working behind the counter and they look like they'd rather be in a coffin. And you can always spot them, and it brings you down. And so I want to make sure that I enjoy what I'm doing and I enjoy the content. Otherwise, what's the point? And part of that just means playing games that I'm going to enjoy playing and that my audience is going to enjoy learning about or watching or whatever. And once we get closer to the launch of a lot of these bigger titles, of course, we're going to play the crap out of Assassin's Creed Origins. We're going to play the crap out of, well, a lot of games that are coming out later this year. Red Dead Redemption, Far Cry 5. We're going to play all of those. But right now we're just in a bit of a dry point, which is why I'm trying to take my time with a few of these other reviews and critiques, just because I don't want to rush anything. But the game I've been playing a lot of that I've been enjoying the most is LA Noire. At this point, you can buy it on Steam. It's literally a steal. It's a great game. I really can recommend it. I really enjoy it. So where was I going with that? Usually I don't know. Deathstroke says, I heard that a former Rockstar Games developer is working on a mysterious game where you will be your own character and the story builds around you in real time. It sounds promising. I remember that too, like an exec from Rockstar. I remember hearing that too. I can't remember the guy, but he went off and he was trying to do something very, very ambitious. If I remember correctly. Let's see. Infamous, Middle Earth. Needs are really good. Final Fantasy 15. Literally. I just say it now. I don't even realize I'm saying literally, but that's just what happens. But anyway, I think we'll probably call it there. I do want to do some more Twitch streams in the near future. I know I keep saying that, but there's been a lot of bumpy stuff going on in the background that I'm trying to keep off the channel. Whenever there's a surge of trolls or there's something like that, the best policy tends to be to create a video, maybe responding to it, maybe addressing it, or maybe just a video that you aren't going to care that much about, like an update on the channel. And you let that video, because it's your most recent upload, it will absorb most of the hate that they send on you, and then you can delete it or clear it off. And in terms of the YouTube algorithm, it doesn't take it into consideration because it views it as just like, oh, you lost like 3,000 views. Okay, no big deal, whatever. Whereas if I left it up, it would be a real problem. YouTube would just bury the channel. So there's been a few things I've had to do over the last few weeks to balance some stuff out. And it's made uploads really weird and live streams weird and all of that. But we're at the point now where we're coming out of that trough and we can go forward and make progress. Yeah. Yeah, I just thought I'd throw that out there. Yes, Tanner Hostrander, we are literally... is it... You're connected. What are you talking about? Oh, I got a spam caller calling in. Spam caller. And Boogie just tweeted out that he's going to do nudes at 400 pounds. Oh, yes, if you are a fan of Boogie2988, make sure you go over, send him some love, tweet at him. You can even say, Lukey Poo sent you. He doesn't know who I am, but it's a funny name, so maybe he'll chuckle. But he's undergoing weight loss surgery, gastric bypass very shortly. It's a very big deal for somebody, no pun intended, to go and like just to get a massive surgery like that. It's a big, big deal. It's not easy to do. I do not envy his doctors. But yes, go over, send Boogie some love. He's gonna have a really rough couple weeks ahead of him. And on YouTube, taking a couple weeks off is a nightmare. You don't want to do that. The algorithm is unforgiving with that, but he's doing it for his personal health. Send him some love. He deserves it. I don't know who this spam caller is, but they left me... I got a phone call from somebody who said they were with the IRS. This might be offensive to you, but I'm being honest, and this is literally what he sounded like. It was just like, oh, hello, I need to tell you that you are from, I am from the IRS, and you owe $5,200 in back taxes. You must pay them to me. I can take your PayPal information, or you can give me directly your credit card number, and I will pay it and charge it, and you will not hear from us again. I was like, what? okay, a few alarm bells are going off. First of all, it's a number from like it's not an official number. It's recommended as a spam caller. When I asked him for like details, it was absolute rubbish. Never like spam callers. They prey on the retarded essentially, and it's really funny when you can really embrace it and then start feeding it. There's some really funny videos online of people that troll spam callers. So funny, so funny. But yeah. No, we had a good time. And Ohin Abtahi, sorry if I mispronounced your name, said, what's the next game you'll do an analysis for? We'll see. I'll probably do a small one on Hollow Knight. There's not a lot to say about it, even though it's a great game. There's not a lot to say about it. I'll probably throw that together. That'll be up like Monday or something. And then, you know, I'll keep working on Bioshock Infinite is one I want to do. LA Noire is another one I'm obviously working on. And then there's a few others I want to do that I'm not ready to talk about because I don't want to get hopes up in case I choose to not do them or in case something else pops up. But I just want to throw that out there. But yeah, Dodo says he wants to see me troll a spam caller. We can have a good time. We can have a good time doing that. Next time on stream, if they call, we'll do that. Okay. We'll troll them in real time. That'll be fun. Another reason to tune in right there. We will literally troll him. But okay, that's all I got. Thank you all for watching. Honestly and truly, we had a great time. I hope you had a great time too. We were a little all over the place, but we talked about a lot of cool stuff. We talked about OJ Simpson. We talked about Leafy. We talked about LA Noire possibly getting a remaster. Talked about Destiny 2, obviously. We talked about Splatoon 2. We talked about Dr. Disrespect and that whole debacle. We had a good time. I'm very thankful to all of you for turning out, and hopefully I'll see you next week. And we'll be in the Discord right after. Also, follow me on Twitter right there, Twitch, and come over to the Discord. Maybe that link doesn't work. I'm not sure. But yes, I'll see you. Thank you for watching. Love you all. Peace out. Bye-bye. Literally, bye-bye.